talk about why your second hair transplant surgery might actually be worse or go worse than your first hair transplant surgery. And a few of the things that I've noticed as I've had more hair transplants, things changing with the way that I healed. And so first, let's go ahead and let Steve, Steve's had way more experience than me, explain with what patients kind of get into with their second hair transplant and some of the expectations and downsides of a second hair transplant.
Yeah, I'll leave it back to David, who, by the way, is catching up very quickly on experience, and he's going to pass me very soon when the student becomes the teacher. But you can talk about, David, how the healing and all that kind of stuff. As far as like what I deal with, not only with myself but also with many patients, as you all know, is kind of the psychological or the expectation side of this. Dealing with many patients on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, is that going into any zone, let's just use the hairline for example, that's always the easiest one. When you go in there with no hair at all, so you have zero hair in any given zone in the hairline, you're going to lower that hairline, you're going to frame the face, immediately the patient appears younger and likes it. So that's kind of procedure number one, very quickly and easily. After we like it and it makes us look younger, we think, well, hold on a second, if I do procedure number two and we just double down on exactly what we did the first time, I lost about 5 years off my looks on the first procedure. I think I'll get another 5 years on the second procedure. That doesn't really work that way. So that's what the point I wanted to make is that, what we take for granted, I think, myself included, because I just had my hairline done as well about over a year ago, is we don't realize how much change we've already made. Let's just use a scale of like 1 to 10, make it easy. I would say that if you go to a quality doctor clinic and get a great hair surgery, when you lower your hairline and fill in the hairline as best as possible, you're probably going to score about a 7.5. Nobody gets a 10 in my book, but that's just how it works because I'm a perfectionist. So there's no way to get another 7.5 in the second procedure. You're just gonna get a little bit better because you already have hair there.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two is crowns. Again, I always talk about crowns as far as how much we can really cover. And when it comes to crowns, I would definitely say it's a 2-procedure process because the way it's circular pattern, you're looking from above. But I've had guys that will have phenomenal results in one and think, well, my results were so close to perfection. After I do the second procedure, you won't be able to see any scalp. And that's kind of the kiss of death. Because at the year later, they come back and say, but wait a second, how can I still see scalp? And of course, it's all about aesthetics. It's all about variations in the patients. It's, do they have strong hair? Do they not have strong hair? Do they have dark hair, light skin, which we know is very challenging, and usually that's the case in what I just explained. And I could go on and on and on. But today, what we're talking about, maybe David has other thoughts about other procedures, but procedure number 1 to procedure number 2, in any given zone, we have to be prepared to lower those expectations even a little bit more, not to be disappointed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, another thing that I've noticed throughout my multiple hair transplants is actually healing, or actually not the healing side of it, but the actual hair growth side of it. I've noticed hair coming in slower on my second, third, fourth, or these procedures, the hair actually growing in at a slower rate than on my first procedure. So why do you think that is? Is it due to blood flow and just more maybe scar tissue up there and things like that? Or why would this be that hair grows in slower?
It is the case across the board, David. It happens to everyone or most patients.
That their second and third, fourth procedure, their hair grows in a little slower than the others.
Right,
yeah.
and again, it's two things. It's scientific and it's a little bit aesthetics. And I'll start with the scientific. So the thought is yes, now that there's more hair in that zone, getting a lot of that blood supply up in the the scalp. Now it doesn't have as much to distribute out to the new grafts. So although there's plenty to go around when it comes to blood supply in the scalp, eventually it'll get there, but it just takes a little bit longer. Then there's the fact about scar tissue and kind of the healing process, and the fact that you've already gone through that zone and you've poked a bunch of holes, which is a real not very professional way of talking about grading sites. But when you've poked a bunch of holes and you've created all this trauma to the scalp, and then it takes a year, sometimes a year and a half to heal, you go back in there and now you're doubling down and you're doing that again. And like anything, I mean, whether you're a professional athlete just using maybe the NFL and they're having multiple knee operations.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, as they're getting older, obviously as they're going in there multiple times, my guess is it's going to take a little longer to heal.
Yeah.
So that's kind of common in what I see.
Hmm.
Yeah. Aesthetically, talking about what you asked, and I kind of talked about this in the beginning of the feed, is that you also think that the hair is not coming in as fast, and I think it too. And it may or may not be because it's just too hard to see, even with photography. I mean, if you think about it, just use the frontal zone, the frontal third of the scalp, and that's obviously that's the hairline area, like we just talked about. And now you've got hair there. So now it's really hard to drill down, obviously, with your eyeballs in your mirror in your bathroom, and see the little sprouts, see the little hair coming in. All right. Even with photography, it's really hard. So just visually, we convince ourselves until those hairs are starting to mature. Let's say month 5, month 6, you're like, oh, now I'm seeing them. So yeah, it's just taking longer.
Yeah, there's a really difficult mental thing that you go through, or not difficult, just a strange mental process, I think, with having the multiple hair transplants, is that you actually don't remember what you looked like. Like, this is something that happens like after, and I think there's some scientific data on this as far as how long it sort of takes for you to forget what you used to look like. And so a lot of people will go, man, like, do I even look any better? Because they look at themselves and they just see themselves the way that they are now, and they, I've noticed that for myself, that like I can't even imagine myself without hair. I in my mind, if I'm looking here in this video, I'm like, really? Like, I used to be bald? That doesn't make sense. Like, this is just how I look, And so it's really hard to gauge your own progress that way without really good pictures of seeing that. I remember the same thing with the Zoflo. When I used the Zoflo and I got those injections, at like 8 months or so, I remember my friend Matt Dominance with the Hair Loss channel, he was interviewing me and he was like, hey, so how's the Zoflo thing? And I'm like, I don't know if I've seen any difference at all. And I wasn't looking, I don't do lots of pictures and don't study myself like as much as you guys think that I do. And so it wasn't until I came back here to Dr. McGrath's office and we did the before and after photos in the same room and I really got to study them that I was like, oh wow, yeah, there definitely was some positive improvement. Like, I can clearly see that there was positive improvement, and there really should have not been for any other reason, because I hadn't changed any new medication, I hadn't had any new surgeries in a year, so there shouldn't be any reason for positive improvement except for that Zoflo. But I mean, honestly, if I hadn't gone and looked at those before and after pictures in this, same room and all that kind of stuff, same angles, I wouldn't have thought anything happened. I just go, no, like, my hair looks, it's about the same, because it was little enough that it wasn't like, oh my gosh, like suddenly things changed. It was a minor amount of improvement. So yeah, let's answer some questions from you guys. Thank you so much for all your questions. We'll try and get to all of them. Yeah, just go ahead and shoot them away. Thanks for showing up. Make sure you ring the notification bell so that the next time we go live, we might even do a live a little bit later today. Again, and I do lives a lot just at home by myself. We will try and answer all your questions. So ring the notification bell. All right, so guys, what do you subscribe? Make sure to take its course to a full horseshoe. That's the name of his channel. Wow. Okay, that's dedication to hair loss. He says, guys, what do you prescribe to guys losing ground on Finasteride? What? And then he says, dutasteride, anti-androgens like RU58841, Floridil plus oral minoxidil. So what's your take on what do you suggest to guys losing ground on Finasteride?
So this is no perfect science, but what I do is talk to guys about tracking properly with photography. It's really hard to just answer that question for anybody if they ask me, like, hey, how you doing today? My name is Steve. Tell me what kind of preventative treatments you're using. I was using Finasteride 3 years ago and I was on it for a year and didn't see any change. Do you have photos? Well, not exactly, or maybe I do a little bit. So you got to kind of be a little easier on yourself, not so hard on yourself, I mean to say, that you got to use photos. So first thing I would do is I would get, unfortunately this is going to sound really lame, but I would get that patient back on Finasteride. I'd use the one where there's the minoxidil in the pill, and then I'd get good baseline photos and see where we go. The second kind of answer to that question is, maybe you've just slowed it down and not stopped it. So if that is the case, then life is life. It's like all this trying not to get old. You're just buying yourself some time, and maybe a transplant every few years, meaning 4 years, 5 years, could keep you in the game, especially with your hairline, knowing that you weren't going to be able to catch up like me over my whole entire scalp. But you still look pretty good as you go on. The third thing was, this is what you probably want to hear, is from time to time we will talk about switching over to Finasteride and seeing if that's just a little bit different change. But again, then you got to go through a year of the photos, and you still want to use the oral minoxidil. So it's a little bit of a time consuming thing, but there is no perfect science, and it is rare for men to lose ground with Finasteride.
Yeah, so I have a lot of personal friends and 3 of my brothers that are on the Finasteride oral minoxidil combination pill. And none of my brothers have lost any ground since they've been on it. Not, Mark has been on it now for, I think, at least 3 years, and he's in his like late 20s to early 30s. So he's definitely in a time when like this should be getting hit hard by male pattern baldness, and he's not lost any ground. He's only gained ground on that. He's like a very clear example. I mean, my brother Paul, same thing. Jimmy has only been on it, I think, like a year or less, so I couldn't really see it with him in a long-term type situation. But none of my friends with that combination have lost any ground. Like you have how many people who like Dr. McGrath has prescribed that combination pill to?
Yeah, over the past 5 years since we've added the minoxidils,
thousands, right?
There's thousands,
and how many people have lost ground? Very visually lost ground.
I can only remember a couple. I'm saying less than 5.
Less than 5 out of thousands of guys.
Yeah. And even those guys will admit, it's almost like you inject true serum over the they will admit, they're like, I just gave up on it after about 3 months. The young guys, they just didn't have the money. A lot of guys
forget about it or something like that, and then they're like I have a friend, and he's like, oh yeah, I was losing ground on on the Finasteride. This is not the combo pill. This is actually just straight up Finasteride. And I had to sort of get it out of him, like you're saying, like inject true serum. And he's like, yeah, I do forget to take it like a lot. And so like, man, if you're not, like, you're judging. He's like, I don't think it's really working for me. And then he admitted that later that he's not regular about taking it. He forgets to take it and stuff.
Yeah.
So the people that I think are regular with it, it's very, very rare that people are losing ground with it. Yeah. So this is something I don't think you need to be that scared of. Especially, maybe with Finasteride, but the Finasteride minoxidil, because they're working in such different mechanisms of hair loss, it's like the 1-2 punch. I think is definitely with oral minoxidil alone. No, you're gonna keep losing hair. Like it's gonna be slower, but you're gonna lose hair. Same with Finasteride. I think it's going a little bit it's obviously stronger, works in a better mechanism, but like the combination of those two things, I don't see a lot of guys losing much more hair.
Yeah, and there's also, David, you've done...
It's taking years, I think, if that does happen.
Correct. And you've done videos and whatnot on laser as well, and low-level laser therapy works.
Yeah.
It's just that we can't come on here and talk about how wonderful it is, because then we're going to send the wrong message where young guys who are afraid of Finasteride are going to say, well, I'll just use a laser.
Yeah.
You have to start with the Finasteride. The minoxidil married to that in one pill is obviously no-brainer. But using laser works as well. So
like the combination of all three of those things.
That's the key. Yeah.
All right. Let's go to next question is Bobby says, I bothered Steve so much the months leading up to 6 months. That's funny. Bobby got his hair transplant done by Dr. Daniel McGrath here.
So this is a good example. Bobby, who's an amazing young guy. He's a YouTuber. He's got a little bit of his channel is dedicated to hair, and he's super good looking. He's jacked. He's another guy that I try to compete with, not really compete with David, but trying to keep on somewhat of a level with David, with Bobby. And he's going to have his second surgery, and we had started off the feed on that, and I talked to him on his channel and said, you got to be very careful. You're a home run. You're a grand slam home run. You're a Super Bowl victory in one procedure. And he's just a kid in a candy store. He looked so good. He looked great to begin with, like David. But he's so good that now he wants more. I'm like, you're not going to get remember, 1 out of 10, you did like an 8. Yeah. So be careful. Anyway, he gets it. I know he's listening. He's great. And you'll see him again on check him out on YouTube as well.
Yeah, I did a video with him on his procedure as well. Mm-hmm. It's here on the channel. All right, Let me look here. So will hair transplants ever be cheaper? Um, yeah, I don't really see it suddenly just becoming cheaper. I mean, it's already such a widespread thing that the sort of like, it's already done by so many people. I don't know. I kind of see that as the same thing of like, will paintings ever be cheaper?
Well,
You know what I mean? There'll always be somebody that will do them cheaply, and maybe even good cheaply. But like,
yeah.
there's always going to be like a great artist is going to want to get paid well. You know what I mean?
Well,
And you're going to a lot of training, school, all that kind of stuff.
yeah, I mean, it's like a conversation about pharmaceutical drugs and the investment in creating those drugs. But the reality is they've gotten a lot cheaper. I know this is going to sound like I'm twisting this, but like if I can tell you guys what I paid, and I'm not feeling sorry for myself, it's ridiculous. I mean, like they used to charge $18-20 a plug.
Wow.
And
oh my gosh. And that was back like going for inflation. That's like $50 a plug.
Yeah, I mean it was ridiculous. You'd still
Gas
lay out
was like 79 cents back then.
Well, we'll say make believe that an uncle had it done. I'm not talking about me anymore. So what's changed is you're getting a lot more grafts. You're getting a lot more hair. You're getting a lot more coverage. And when you lay it out and really look at it, I mean, I know what the numbers are like. If you're spending $25,000 to cover your scalp, if that's the number, comparatively speaking to me spending literally more than double that and getting the frontal third done, it's much cheaper. But I think the question is geared toward like, dollar per graft, $2 per graft. And it just doesn't work that way because if you think about it, you have it's a very labor-intensive procedure. It's a skill set, and that's what you were just saying.
Yeah,
it's an art and a science.
And there's a lot of really expensive things that go into this actually, like to really doing it correctly. So not only you have to have like the location, then I mean the microscopes alone, which should be used for your
thousands
surgery,
of dollars.
Like they're thousands and thousands of dollars for one. I think was like $6,000, $8,000. I remember Dr. Moamba actually told me how much they were.
Yeah.
But it was like in the $6,000 to $10,000 range.
The chairs are $10,000.
Wow. Okay. So like this is just for one thing of microscopes. That's it. And you need to have probably 3 anyway. So that's like $30,000 of microscopes.
And since you brought it up, and thanks for the question, it's a great question. Think about it this way: I get a lot of questions. David gets a lot of questions from, "Hey, I can go to Europe or overseas and pay nothing in comparison." Yeah, but it's not about paying nothing in comparison. It's the business model you're signing up for. What you don't know is those guys are doing at least 10 to 15 a day. That is a fact. So just do the math. Right? So it's not about what you're paying, it's what that doctor's making. The problem with that is, in my world, is that the talent pool is diluted, including the doctor's time with you. So it really comes down to you know what I mean? Like paying a certain number, which is affordable, if you want to call it that, for a absolute board certified, standard in the industry specialist.
I'm sure there's some kind of fee for being board certified as well.
Well, medical license.
Yeah, medical license. There's like we just did some videos on SurgiHeal Pro, which is like miraculous. I mean, the comparison of the experience of having a surgery using SurgiHeal Pro to heal post-operatively, and then I can't even speak for it really on like intraoperatively using it, but Dr. McGrath is like, I mean, a bunch of doctors, Dr. Sarah Wassbauer just did a video on it, talks about how much better the procedure is intraoperatively using it, and that stuff's pretty expensive as well. It's like a couple $100 for a bottle of it, and then like a couple hundred for the take home. So like these are like expenses every single time that's getting used in order to do the surgery the very best that it can be done. So like things like that add up, and then the best talent, whether it's the techs, Dr. McGrath, giving an example here, I know that he pays his techs very well because they stick with him for years and years. I've been coming here for 8 years or so, and it's basically all the same girls who have been here for all that time. And these are obviously talented girls. They could be poached by any other surgeon. Would love to have them. And so Dr. McGrath pays them really well in order to stay here and be part of this team. That way, every single surgery is guaranteed to get the best quality staff. So, I mean, he could probably drop his price by quite a lot if he just went, oh yeah, I'll kind of like, if these girls get expensive, I'll just get some other girls.
Well, he could drop prices tomorrow if he decided he was going to change his business model.
Yeah.
He has the operating rooms. He has 3. He could put a 4th in, do 4 a day. Drop his prices 50%. Everybody wins, right?
Yeah.
Not exactly. That's the problem. So he's learned by watching this industry. He worked for that big company that bought out everybody out in San Francisco. They were doing 5 a day. And the first thing he said when he called me from San Fran was he said, hey, I don't want it. When I do it on my own, I'm not doing it this way.
Yeah.
It's just, I see where the patient doesn't get that quality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dr. Moamba, he only does, I think it's a maximum of 2 people per day. And he generally has another surgeon working with him as well. One time I went to him, he had 3 surgeons working on 2 people there, so like each surgeon has to be paid, but you're getting very specialized treatment.
Yeah, here
and he flies his tech first class.
Yeah.
Because he's going all around, and so his tech flies first class. Why? Because he wants his tech well rested.
That's right.
So when she's doing these Europe to the U.S. flights back and forth, she needs to make sure she's got plenty of sleep so she doesn't screw things up. Because I was like, wow, you fly your tech first class. Everybody's like, yeah, because she comes everywhere with me. She's got to be well rested. So I bet he could drop his price by $1 or $2 per graft. But then if she's kind of sleepy because she didn't sleep well on that flight, then that's going to lead to not as good a result for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of kind of the higher brand cars, although I'm not a car guy. But I always used to tease people that I knew down in Southeast Florida when they were driving a brand new Lexus, and I go, oh hey, that's a really nice Toyota. And they didn't like that. So I was always thinking that there's this factory line, and like Toyotas go to this side and they just do cosmetics, and Lexus go to this side.
Yeah.
And then a friend of mine just got this brand new Lexus, and it's like beautiful, and I'm like, oh wow, like I've never seen that model, and could I take a ride in it? And he kind of drove me around. I'm like, this is definitely not a Toyota. Mm-hmm. So I mean, the point is that if you're asking a question, just comparatively speaking, are Lexus cars that are the $75,000 car ever coming down to 30? I don't think so. And you're paying for that quality if that's what you want. In hair, it's a little bit different. You have to have the quality, or you're going to destroy your donor, which is what, by the way, these guys flying to Europe.
And it's so much more permanent. Like if I'm choosing between like a Lexus or a quality hair transplant boutique hair transplant surgeon, I'm walking around with that hairline for the rest of my life. I'm like limited donor here for the rest of my life. Like that's right. That's the last time that I'm gonna skimp on like money. And like, yeah, I wish I would have even understood that better from the beginning, because I'm just like you guys. Like, and I started off in the exact same place, never having had a hair transplant. I thought doctors are doctors, surgeons are surgeons. You go to a doctor, you pay them a fee. Like when I'm going to go get like a prescription written from, for whatever, like for some Finasteride, like, oh, let's just go to whoever, they can all write a prescription, just like go to the cheapest person possible, But I've really learned, like, and you'll learn the hard way or not, that it's not everything is equal. and sometimes like surgery is like one of the few things in my life is conservative and frugal as I am, that I very clearly know that's the last thing I want to be frugal with, because there's no going back. I'm not going to go to if I need knee surgery, I'm not going to go to the cheapest knee surgeon that I can find, because I only have 2 knees and only one right knee or left knee. All right, a couple more questions here. Sorry for the rant, guys. Let's see here. Finasteride gave me hard, flaccid, and pelvic pain. Woo. Hard, flaccid. I don't know what that means. I think hard and flaccid are the opposite, aren't they?
Yeah.
Let's see. Eric says, oh, okay, so here we go. Unbending complexes. Can you still get natural temple points with FUT? So my take on this, I'm not a surgeon, but my take on the natural temple points with FUT is that this is going to partly depend on the strength of your hair, the quality of your hair. So for instance, Steve, because he has finer and thinner hair, I mean, his temple points look insanely natural. Like, I have looked at so many hair transplants and feel like I can spot a hair transplant from a mile away, right? And Steve is like one of the few hair transplants that I've ever seen, maybe even the only one I've ever seen, that I cannot tell. I mean, I'm looking at him right here as close as possible, and there is no way I could guess. Like, I would never put money on guessing whether Steve has ever had a hair transplant. And I think, obviously it comes down to the quality of the surgeon, all those things, but some of it also comes down to, like, the quality of his hair is very thin, which is a bad thing for him on, coverage side of things, but it's a great thing for him on the naturalness of his hairline. So versus me, I 100% feel like I could spot that I had a hair transplant. And that, again, I don't think comes down to the quality of the surgeon. I think that comes down to I have more thick hair and I have light skin. And it's just like the contrast and the way that is. I think, 90% natural is as close as I'm ever going to get to like a natural hairline. And yeah, I think that just comes kind of down to my hair. So with me, I think I would have a more natural result on my hairline or like my temple points if I did have FUT, because I'd be able to pick and choose what hair. Versus Steve, I think because all of his hair is pretty fine and thin everywhere, that he could get his temple points done with FUT and it's still going to be 100% natural. So do you agree with me?
Yeah, I do. And I think that, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but it's like, I would rather have temporal peaks done, even if they were a little stronger, than not have temporal peaks.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to answer the question directly, which I do believe that, like David just put it really well. It's hard to follow up on, follow that. So it's like, he has these temporal peaks that you could have an argument that David has stronger hair. And by the way, what you didn't say, which is okay, right, is that the stronger hair is also a little bit of a stronger follicle, like African American for that matter, to talk about it. They have really strong hair. It's great hair, but it has you have to use like a larger punch when doing FUE because the skin around it is stronger. That creates an inflammatory reaction in every single site. And that takes a while to settle down. And it may not settle down completely as it's going into that little larger site.
Yeah.
So I don't think our sites and our instruments to use make your sites, my sites are any different. And that also has to do with our punch. But it's your skin, because you have the darker hair, maybe a little stronger than mine. Yeah. That's the advantage. I got to take all the advantages I can get. And mine is so wimpy and the skin is so white that it heals up and you can't see anything. Okay.
Yeah.
So it just depends. But again, going back to what I started saying, is that I'm a big fan, because I lost my hair so young, of a hairline jumping out, not over the top jumping out, but that's a very youthful look to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit of a balance with those two things. And, we have such a different eye than other people. Like, my friend Rob is going in for a hair transplant with Dr. McGrath, who's a close personal friend of mine. And I was just hanging out with Rob. It's the first time that actually we've hung out in person. We've like video chatted many times. We've known each other for years, but we've never hung out in person. And so it was the first time that he saw my hairline. And this is only, I think when is Rob due for surgery here? Rob Drake? It's like in the next month or two.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, pretty soon, yeah.
And so Rob saw my hairline and he's like, dude, I could never guess that you had a hair transplant. And he's looking, because he's now judging me because he's gonna go in for the same surgeon, and he's like, I could never guess, like, your hair looks perfect. And I thought, wow, like, I don't think so. Like, I could see my hairline and in 2 seconds know that I had a hair transplant. So, but that's me, like, looking at myself, you know what I mean? And judging myself, and that's like using an expert eye, and I've got a very skewed image of that because I am me, so like I'm always gonna know what's real and not on me.
Yeah.
But this is a guy who is very judgmental of my hair transplant because he's going in for the same surgeon, and he's like, I could never tell, like, it looks 100% natural to me, which made him feel very confident about coming here for surgery. So it's all relative. Like, you guys are looking at people online in hair transplant videos going, oh man, his hair transplant looks so unnatural. But I think in a lot of those cases, as long as it's not super unnatural, the like 99% of people who ever see that guy are probably like, yeah, look at that, you have a great hairline.
Yeah.
So we're just looking at it from such a different perspective. Okay, man, I want to answer all these questions, and we have like 28 people online and like so many good questions. Okay, so all right, we're gonna try and answer a couple of these via some just pre-recorded videos, because we're shooting some other pre-recorded videos. So please check back, and we'll try and answer your question on a actually pre-recorded video except for this live. And then we're gonna be back on live later today, probably at like 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. But already we're at 30 minutes, so I try and limit these to about 30 minutes because who's gonna watch this long? So I'm sorry we're not gonna be able to answer all of your questions right now, but hit the notification bell, come back here at 5 Central Standard Time, ask your question, we'll get to it. We'll try and answer some of them during pre-recorded videos. So we will see you guys soon. Thanks for hanging out, thanks for all the messages, and lots of love to all of you.